welcome to G50RC. Going in for the turbine conversion on the E-Flite Viper 90. This will be a Kingtech K45. Just as a side note, we are now manufacturing the laser cut items that help you get this to where it needs to be. They are a work in progress, but they seem to have worked okay on this job, and we will develop them as soon as we get feedback from everybody. But they're certainly worth purchasing because they're a great start and get you moving in the right direction. And they'll work on many models, including the FMS Viper, and you may be able to modify them into an Avanti if you wish, but we can take feedback on that from you at some time. But definitely for this model, they're a perfect starting position to get this unit converted. Enjoy watching. So we're starting on the Viper 90 conversion, so a Kingtech K45 G4 Turbine. We've removed the receiver tray. We've taken the wings off to make life a bit easier. But now we're starting to open up the air inlets to allow for the fuel tank fitment, and obviously to allow all the air to get to the turbine. So all this in here has to come out, all this foam. Following a few online tutorials from people that have done it before. Just slow and steady, kind of dig away at it. So you can see what we've actually removed. Now we're going for the other half on the opposite side. And you can see the hole all the way through there. You wave something at the other end. There's the knife. So we're getting some good air passage. Just going to take a bit more cutting out and fine tuning. There we go, got the left hand side out. Starting to open up again now. It's looking pretty good. I think at the front here we'll end up making a laser cut piece to stop all the grass coming through and getting into the turbine, because it's kind of exposed from the landing gear. But we can make a piece to fit exactly in there with the laser. It's not going to take much doing. I don't really want to pull all these wires out, could become a bit messy. Now check out the nice large opening in the back there for the fuel tank. Looks pretty good. Leave the wires there for a while, sort out the wire leads later. Look at the size of the pieces cut out there. So now we've got that hole cut out, we've still got the wire leads and such like in the bottom. Just leave those there until we start assembling the tray. And you've got to cut out all the way down to the wing spar and forwards a little, probably about an inch from that V section that I just pointed at. That's probably the best point to talk about there. That's being the maximum you should cut out that foam forward, and then cut it flat as I'm showing with my finger there, just so you get a nice flat bottom for the tank to sit on. It should be pretty nice then. So now I'm just checking out how good my cuts are on the edge. I just need to make sure that we don't cut into the air inlet section. So I'm just feeling on the inside just to make sure. You've really got to be careful there. Yep, you guessed it, it's wire time. Bit of a pain. Now I've altered, taken off some of the wire leads of some of the cables, and I've added some extension leads to go to take the wires a little bit further forward in the what was the old battery tray area. Now you've got a problem here. You've got to route some wires under the tank, some wires over the top of the tank, like the rudder and the elevators go on top of the tank. I'm going to put the receiver actually in front of the tank on a small platform. So I made a bit of a mess here. I put extension leads on that were too long, thinking my receiver was going by the nose wheel. But it's not, it's going where my finger is there. That's where the receiver is going to be, and not at the front. Previously the
the rudder signal was going to the nose wheel also, so the rudder cable that goes under the battery tray to the nose wheel is now coming back out, and it will go to its own channel on the receiver, so the nose wheel can be totally separate, and I may even put that on a separate gyro, but we'll see.
Now, to talk about the new laser cut inserts that you see here, you know, for the UAT, I really do recommend that you leave the lower battery tray in place. It gives a good support for all the standoffs, and the UAT can sit on top of it too, because it sits tightly in there if you leave the lower battery tray in place. It's a great platform for the additions that we laser cut ourselves here. These are now available in store, so you can get those from me if you message me on YouTube or via Facebook. I see the insert here that we laser cut in-house. You can route all the wires through these holes. There's plenty of good spots to mount the shut-off valve, the fuel pump, and all the other devices that you need in there. Do not take out the battery tray like I did. You see there, I took it out. That's a big mistake of mine. Always leave that in, because you need it for the standoffs for this plate here. Then it holds the UAT tightly in place also. You don't have to make additional parts. Now we're going for the thrust tube mount. It's laser cut again. We've painted it black with matte black paint, just to take the edge off the bright balsa wood. It will fit nicely in the thrust tube opening there. You can put a bit of good epoxy behind it. Once it's in place, just hold it in with CA temporarily. We then go on to checking out that all these parts just generally fit before we push. You see the thrust tube there? Before we push that all the way through. It won't go in permanently until the end, but we do a test fit now. So you slide that thing in there, put a little bit of CA around the edge, just to hold it in. It fits real nice in there. It's not super tight, but it fits nice. And then you line some epoxy behind it that you can't see, so then it's held nice and tightly in there for later. The thrust tube fits great through the centre of that laser cut plywood. It's going to be real nice in there. So you push it in that way, and then you spin it 90 degrees and just dab some CA in there. Not really a big task, but it really finishes it off well and keeps the styrofoam well clear of any heat that may come through, because it's a double line thrust tube, so you've got no issues. I use some Loctite EA608. It comes out grey, but I use it on all my 3D planes also for doing servo horns. It sets solid, and it's not quick setting, but it's great long term. Now it's turbine time, the best bit of the project in my view. So we're testing the turbine in here. It's upside down at the moment. You really don't want your glow plug at the bottom of your igniter, so that's going to be flipped over by the end, because if you realise the plane's upside down on the stand. We're testing the thrust tube in place. We've got no silver foil in place yet to protect this styrofoam, but we don't really care at the moment. We're just test fitting that everything lines up, everything is going to fit, and there's no big clashes. We're using the original mounts from the EDF fan, which is absolutely ideal. No point creating a problem for yourself and having to bond things in all over the place that you don't need to. So we're using the original mounts where we can mount the plywood to. Now it's being laser cut. It's just going to fit in there real nice. See, the spacing is good. All the spacing shown on the laser cut parts for you. You've got no issues there. But we will line all that with silver foil tape eventually to keep the heat away from the styrofoam. And the thrust tube's in there. I do like it to hang out a little out the back, and then there's no chance of the back plastic section melting. I think it's ideal, and look how centralised it is. It just fits straight in there, no issues whatsoever. It's a great fit. Everything just looks pretty cool in there. I did cut some out of the cover that goes on top. So out it comes, and there's the wires that need to be covered up. Here's what I had laser cut. that fits in there nice. Ignore all the grey epoxy, all that's going to get covered up and made to look nice. You can paint all these pieces black if you wish, some people do. But you see the original mounts there also, but the wires are protected from the heat by that piece of wood there, and then you can epoxy around it to really clean it up and make it look nice. Because there will be a lot of heat coming off that turbine around that point, so it's ideal to protect those sections there. And you can still pull the wires out later because the wood is raised off them. It does fit nice in there. I think it's going to be pretty nice, is that, when it's done. Now don't make my mistake here. Leave the battery tray in. I had to make these extra wooden sections on the floor, on the base there, to support the top mounting section for all the turbine parts. If you leave the battery tray in, you can leave all your wires between the new balsa wood piece that holds all the fuel pump and the lower old battery tray. It's like a nice protected route where you can put all your servo wires and all the extra cable loops. Now you see I've added epoxy down the side as well to secure the box section carbon fibre pieces that are already in the EDF down the side, which support the whole fuselage. So I've added a bit more security in there with the epoxy, because those do tend to like pop out over time if you're not careful, because the glue from the factory wasn't all that good. So this way the carbon fibre strengtheners will stay in place pretty well. And you see the vertical support struts for the upper platform. Those are 3D printed and they're nice little additions. Now here we had to bond together the bits of plywood, which is pre-laser cut for you, and then I had to notch them out around the plastic mount for the turbine mount. And these are the supports for the turbine laser cut plates that go on each side. There's a left and a right, they're all marked up, which also support the thrust tube mounting points. And you see the original inserts there from the old EDF. I'm going to use those. At this point we haven't bonded in the elevator and rudder wire protector. There's no need just yet. Just giving you some more views here. It's always nice to show the detail, so you don't have to keep flicking backwards and forwards through the video. Those pieces are all double thickness, so you can use the same, let's say 2.5–3mm birch, rather than having to cut super thick pieces on the laser. It lets you use a 30 to 40 watt laser rather than having to go up to a 60 or 100 watt. It's perfect for the benchtop lasers, which I use.
So we could have left the lower battery tray in from the original system, but I've had to remake some cross braces to hold the spacer pegs that support the actual UAT tank and all the other components, to bring it back up to the correct level. So I think I would recommend leaving the lower battery tray in next time, although we have lightened the whole system up by not having all this section in here. These are being epoxied in here using some Loctite epoxy, which might not look nice, but it's super strong. So I think the next stage now we've test fitted the unit, is to get the parts cut for here and also get the parts cut for the underside. For the wire protector, there'll be a piece of wood in there to keep the heat from those wires going to the rudder and the elevator. I'm not sure yet whether we're going to leave the ESC tray in there. We may do, because it adds a bit of structural support, but we'll see how it interferes with everything else, like the tank, the fuel tank. So here we go, this is the laser at work, cutting out the nose gear cover plate, the one that will stop all the grass from coming back into the fuselage and through the turbine. It'll really keep things a lot cleaner inside. And we're going to put some engraving on there. The laser is an awesome piece of kit. Saves you tons of time. It just gets the job done. There we go, you can see how easy that fits in there. Slides in. Great fit. Push it as far up as you wish. There's a gap there, but I'll probably find that I need to put a piece of styrofoam in there, which was cut out from the previous disassembly in here.
Now I know I mentioned that you need to put a piece of styrofoam in that gap under the new front plate over the nose wheel, but what it actually needs is that piece of styrofoam putting in and a little piece of wood notching out from that new piece I lasered. It allows the fuel line to come out of the end of the UAT up from the underside of the new wooden plate that goes along the fuselage and then feeds into the fuel filter and the fuel shut-off valve. So where those black lines are, yeah, we're going to fit that in there, but it's also going to have a notch cut out of the wood to allow for the 4mm fuel line.
Here's an ideal fit to go into here. We're going to CA that in there, keeps it nice and light. And then when this goes over the top, it'll be a great fit, it'll be all covered up. Let's use a bit of thick CA on here. Just to hold the nose plate in. And then we can slide this underneath and on top. Sure it's nice and straight. Press it down and let the glue do its business. And then we may go around here with some epoxy later, just to give it some structural integrity. You can see we've added the wire cover in place. That's going to get covered in silver foil tape at some time. Just put some CA down each side just to hold it in place, and I'm going to go around it with epoxy also.
There you go. It's all epoxied in now, it's all ready to go. Now we've got the mounts for the turbine fastened in place using the original mounting screws from the old EDF. The holes pretty much line up for the turbine as I expected they would. And then eventually you can screw down your thrust tube onto there as well. Just align it with the end of the plates that we're making there. Excuse the poor spelling. It's not an FMS Viper, it's a E-Flite Viper. But there's mountings for the K30 and the K45, so you can use either in this conversion. It works well for both, and it's marked on the laser cut plates.
So we're doing a bit of a test fit here. We've fastened in the 2 retaining screws on each side into the original EDF mounting plate, which was stiffened up with epoxy to make sure it's secure in there, because it's only plastic. We've still got to secure the thrust tube, but we've got lots of space to do that. I think it's most likely going to end up somewhere there. Bear in mind this is still loose, so it's not fully perpendicular to the thrust tube, but it's looking good. And we hang out of the back slightly, which I quite like. I think it looks pretty cool. I think overall that looks pretty smart in there. I'm unsure how we're going to access the fuel hose if we ever need to. So I may put the fuel hose on top so it's accessible. I may rotate the turbine, but we'll see.
Here we go, it's silver foil time. So we're going to line all the inside of the turbine area, but not the thrust tube area, probably just going in about 2 to 3 inches inside the thrust tube duct area. You can see it just goes in there, probably about the width of the tape. Standard silver foil tape will work fine. And remove the mounting plates first, the plywood plates, take those out, and then line the whole of the inside, and line the cover as well that goes for accessing the turbine from the outside. Line them both, but don't go all the way up the thrust tube area, there's no need. The heat will only be around this area here, and it also saves any fuel getting into the styrofoam if it ever leaks out for some reason, which it most likely will at some time. This is perfect.
So now we've lined out the inside with the foil tape. We've gone up the thrust tube a little, but now we've got to test fit the turbine and work out how much we need to cut from the cover that goes across the top to allow it to go into place. So there we go. So now we need to do the test fit of the cover, and then we can line the cover with silver foil tape on the inside.
The only part you need to cut some off is down the sides where the balsa wood is now raised up slightly from the old EDF mounts, thicker than the old EDF foam. So in the next video clip you'll see where I'm cutting some material off the foam cover at that mark.
So now when we're putting this cover on, we need to cut a bit of the foam off there, because the thickness of this as an addition is getting in the way of the unit going all the way down. So if we cut off that small section there, I think we should be good. So now with that piece cut off there, let's see how it fits. Oh, look how well that goes down now. That's pretty much perfect. And you can see there's no collision inside because there's no marks on there.
Time to line the inside with silver foil tape. Don't put any on the mating faces because that will add thickness to it. See what I've done there? Just enough. Creates nice coverage and doesn't expose any styrofoam to the heat, which is ideal.
So now we've got the inside of the turbine cover coated in the foil tape. Just making sure that all the areas of foam are taken care of. We've got inside the thrust tube just for a small section. I don't think we need to do the outsides. I think this should be good. See how that fits. There we are. Fits good. All sorted.
So there you go, it's all fitted in place. You've got your thrust tube mounted now with the two servo screws. That's the easiest way to do it. And it just gives you a good overview, close up of what I've done within the engine bay. I think it looks pretty good.
So you can see the fuel tank in position now. We've butted it all the way back up to the old ESC tray in there. And it fits real nice. So it gives it a nice stop. And then looking down the sides, you've still got a real good gap down each side. For air passage. Now we just need to do something with all this in here.
So we're going to test fitting all the ancillary items now, like the UAT, the fuel filter, the ECU and the fuel stop. And we sprayed the plate with matte black just to make it look nice, and we're just trying to get all the wires now located underneath before we fit it in place with the 6 screws.
So I'm starting to prepare the top tray now. It's not in position, so don't judge me on that, but I put the UAT in. I put a Velcro strap round. It's the one from the original battery tray. What I have done is I've grooved out this section here because we need room for the fuel tube to come through, and then obviously back to the turbine. So this way it's got a nice smooth route, no sharp edges. Got the DRM mounted. We've got the tank in there, marked up the fill, the vent and the motor. It's an 800cc, I think that's 32 ounce. 3D printed fuel filter holder, and this is going to be where the fuel tap goes when it arrives, in that spot there. It all fits pretty nice. Yeah, we're not going to have smoke in this one, but if we did, there's so much space under here, we could fit a smoke tank on the underside. and it's removable by 6 screws, so it's no big issue. And there's no reason to hold the tank in with anything, because it's held here by this new tray, and at the back it's held by the old ESC mount, so there's no issues there either. I'm going to bring, I think, all the wires up the side, then maybe put them into a snake skin to bring them to my receiver, which I don't know where that's going to go yet. But here is all the space for the battery mount. But we may also need to mount the fuel pump somewhere around there. I don't know where I'm going to put the fuel pump yet. It's all dependent on weight. I've seen a lot of people adding nose weight, so if I can get the fuel pump maybe here, leave all that for batteries. 2 batteries in there, a LiPo and a Lifey for the ECU, for controlling the turbine power. I think that will work well. I may even make use of some space in there to mount the fuel pump in this spot here, and then we've got Lifey and LiPo down the side, but we'll see.
So here we laser cut an extra piece of wood to give it a double thickness for the screws to really hold solid for the fuel pump. It's the ideal spot for the fuel pump, but it needs to be raised up slightly to go over the UAT with the fuel fittings. There you go, everything's mounted in there now. You've got the fuel pump, you've got the UAT, you've got the ECU, you've got everything in there that you need, apart from the batteries, which will be going in the nose, and we'll cut out some foam out the front of the nose section, and we'll have to add some weight in that nose section, which you can see later on. But see, I've marked up the fuel tank fittings also, just to give me an idea afterwards, so I know which one's which. The fill point is via the UAT, with a separate drain point if you need it, directly from the fuel tank.
So to get more space on top of the fuel pump and the DRM module, which is under here, we've added a plate by putting a piece of wood across, and then to support it, CA glued a piece of pegwood. So now we've got a good platform to put a receiver and also a gyro. Going to fit on that platform there, and then they're easily accessible for binding and just doing general diagnostics. And then all this space here is purely for the batteries, to keep the weight forward. So it's looking pretty good now. I think we're getting to a good position. On the cover, we've cut out the rear pilot, so you'll see that when it fits in place, you've now got loads of space for a receiver, and you can also put something quite substantial on top of the fuel tank. I may put the receiver on there and put the gyro right there, and then I'm going to 3D print an insert for here in grey, so it looks like it's meant to be. We'll probably put a flat piece of PLA straight across there. I might do clear PLA I might do grey, I'm not too sure yet.
Time for the landing gear. So I held on with a couple of tie straps on the original strut. The braked wheels are like JP hobby wheels with brakes inside them. They're heavier than normal, but they've been machined out by a guy that I found online. And then I held on with two tie straps rather than that way shown on the image. It gives a point of least resistance when going back into the wings. Cleaned up all the struts so there's no dirt on there, and I've lubricated them again, but these wheels are definitely heavier. Now the routing of the cable goes down the main leg, and then I use electrical harness tape on there rather than vinyl tape because it holds much stronger, and then route them as shown. Note that the original wire channels for the servos in the wings need widening probably a couple of millimeters to accept this cable, which you'll see further on. Just use a sharp knife, works really well. But that routing is perfect, and then you see the red and black wire down into the wheel pant gap in the back in the wing itself. You see the picture come up shortly, just there.
So we've connected up to the gear channel, and we marked them up actually on the end of the wing. So let's do a retract. Just look how neat that is. No nip point, super tiny. It's pretty much perfect. And it looks pretty tidy with the fibre tape around the wheel support. I'll get the name right eventually. But this fibre tape is it's really good. You get it from Amazon, dirt cheap. It's electrical harness tape, and it's just really nice. So to secure the brake line, we've gone down this route here, around the back, because there's loads of space behind the leg, and under the protective cover for the wheel pant. And we're using fibre tape, which tends to look better and hold up better than electrical tape. And then we've got a nice bend here, which goes into the hollow when it lowers, so there's no nip point at all. Then down here, I just used a medium CA to bond the brake line, power line in place, and then put a piece of fibre tape up the side, across and up, just as a final bit of security. And then obviously we come up through the normal route, but we've opened this up maybe 1/8 of an inch just to make it look a bit nicer. And then we'll cut a nice piece of black, probably vinyl, adhesive backed, to recover this, just to make it look really neat. I know some people have recommended going through this gap here and through here, but I find you've got a really bad nip point here. So this route, it just seems a lot smoother, a lot nicer. We'll give it a test shortly and we'll see what it looks like. And we put the brake line through a little hole we've made so the cable can be routed through there, and then we'll put the connector back on the end so it can't pull back into there, but you've still got room for a little bit of loose cable to enable you to connect it really easy when you put the wings on.
So we've got the brake power cable going through that small hole, which is great. Now as it passes through, we've got to attach a connector back on, and that red connector there is going to be bonded in place. So then we've got a loose cable on the actual fuselage and a fixed cable on the wing. So it gives you a good point of connection, and they're both aligned with each other. So it makes connecting the wings really easy. So the canopy has its piece of wood bonded back in there from where we cut out probably too much foam. This gets painted black eventually, and it kind of merges in. It looks really good at the end. You can see the receiver, you can see the gyro and the states of the gyro, so you can test it before you set off. And it's just a really nice finish in there, so you can view it from the outside without taking the canopy off. I feel it just gives a really good finish to the whole assembly. It beats having to remove the canopy all the time to look at the LEDs for the status of the gyro, because it has 3 status modes. Here's the completed kind of assembly. We've got a 2S for the landing gear, lights, receiver, and that's a 2S LiPo, 2200 milliamp, and then we've got a 2200 or an 1800 LiFi 3-cell to run the actual turbine itself, which is kind of recommended. So that's the way I go. And you've got your fill port there, your pump, UAT, everything's mounted in place, and even the receiver tray is now painted black. It's a bit of a tight squeeze for the wires, but they all kind of fit in there if you cut a little bit off the canopy edges. It's a really nice fitment, and I've got one other receiver antenna hanging out of the outside. Now you can see the piece of vinyl I've used to cover the wires back up again. Just cut that from a piece of standard Oracle vinyl, nothing special, so it protects all the wires. And then you'll get a good view shortly of the finished article from the other side. Well, looks pretty nice, looks like factory. Wings are back in place now on the fuselage, ready to go. We're just going to test all this out, and I think we'll be looking pretty good, ready for a proper test run. So we worked out we needed some weight in the front, so we added 2 weights, one on each side of the nose here, just to bring the CG back towards the factory kind of position. These are the weights I pulled from an old EDF foam jet or plane, I can't quite remember, but they fit nicely in there. If you just cut a little slot in there, push them in, no point in gluing them, they're a tight fit, so at least then we can modify it as we see fit. There's one on each side now, just a few ounces, brought it back forwards again. So the battery location for the LiFi battery for the ECU and the turbine slides all the way into the nose cone. You have to cut out the front section, as you can see there where my finger's pointing. And the way to do it is you cut off that magnet section, that big block on the front of the nose, then use a long knife to cut from the front of the nose cone into the fuselage, and then from inside the fuselage out to the nose cone, and then reattach the front section that has the magnet in for the removable nose cone, and it all goes back in place nicely. It allows you to nicely and neatly cut out the slot for the battery. You'll see how nicely the battery slots in there. It goes pretty much all the way up to the removable nose cone section. That'll fit a 2200 3-cell LiFe in there easily. You can go down to an 18. And then in front of that I do actually fit a 2S LiPo for the landing gear and the receiver and the gyro, which you will see shortly. Now here's a bit of Velcro to hold on the 2-cell LiPo. It's a nice flat one. I got it from Extreme Flight. I use them in all my 3D planes. And there's a switch there also for switching the receiver on and off, which that plugs into. So you get a good voltage at 2200 milliamps. You know, it's more than enough power for the landing gear and for the receiver and the gyro. It's pretty good. So here's the kind of finished product. The battery, all the batteries in there, centre of gravity checked, filled it with fuel, emptied it to nearly empty, and the CG stayed just the same at the factory settings, which is just slightly behind the front plastic protection sections on the wings. So that's the end of the build episode. We've got the GSU cable in there as well, so you can actually check on the turbine. Just plug it in and take it out. I'm going to do another video coming up, which will be initial startup from fueling up all the way to a short ground run. We won't be doing a flight initially, but we can check the nose wheel direction is working okay. We can check the brakes to make sure the brake system is working okay, because we have a little brake module in there from JP Hobbies, which is pretty good. And we've got that set up on a variable slider on the Spectrum transmitter. But we look forward to seeing you in the next episode, where we can actually get some noise out of this thing and maybe give it a short run up and down the road maybe. But it'd be nice to see if we have any fuel leaks and get the gremlins out of it, make sure we don't get any air bubbles in the system, and it's basically getting it ready for the initial maiden flight. It has flown before as an electric, so now it's time for a maiden, but that's a little bit down the line. Thanks for watching everybody, and welcome to G50 RC.